Why are you here today? What brought you to this place to listen to all these Latinx professionals? Is it because you know Latinxs in America can do much better than what we're doing today? Maybe that's why you left family and friends behind from your countries to come to the United States. Or maybe that's why your family before you made the journey themselves. We are all immigrants. We are all after the dream. But what dream are we after? We are after the American dream. And what is the American dream? The American dream is the belief that we can attain our own version of success in a society where upward mobility is possible for everyone. And that is, I believe, what brings us all together to this amazing country. So no matter where you're from or where you were born, you want access to upward mobility. It's one that I didn't have in my own country. Each and every one of you has a story to tell and many struggles to share. My American dream journey began December 3rd of 1993. I grew up in Nicaragua, in Central America. And this is what it looked like when I was, very young, right? This is on July 19th of 1979. Very historic day for Nicaragua, where the Sandinistas had a revolution and they kicked the dictator Somoza out of power. And so you may ask yourself, the question is, where was I on this day? Can you spot me in the picture? Don't bother, don't try to find it. Here I was, not too far from that tank. My mother decided to go and celebrate in the streets this historic day because she was hoping that our country was going to be better, that we were going to be able to achieve upward mobility. But it wasn't the case. It didn't. Things got really worse. Instead, it meant things like no freedom of press. People were losing their private property. Inflation was out of control. And even then, food rationing, right? It was so bad, food rationing, that it affected me personally because I would have to be that one person in our family that would go to the corner store with our census card and pick up our family food allocation. We had 5 people in the family and we had to get we would get 1 pound of sugar, 1 pound of rice, 1 pound of beans, and anything else we had to buy it on the street market at much higher prices. This is a responsibility that I took from a very early age. Many great things happened from those days through my grandmother that came as an immigrant to the United States that allow us to come as a legal resident in 1993. And spent my first few years at this apartment complex in a government subsidized apartment and on food stamps. That was the beginning of my journey. My first job was working the grill at the local McDonald's in Tampa. I did not understand English. I couldn't even understand the orders that were being yelled back from the counter. I had to wait for the printout to come out for me to understand what to do. I also in high school cleaned the offices with my mother to make extra money. So very similar to the Drift offices today, I would walk in there, vacuum, pick up the garbage, clean the bathrooms, and I would see some of the people that would stay working up late. And I would, dream of someday having a job where I could be in the office in that desk. So how did I go from that to now being a founder of a tech company? I'll tell you in one simple answer. People. People, especially Latinx and people of color, Black and Latinos, were the people that helped me and they helped change my life. And I'm really thankful to them. One, my high school math teacher, Judy Blanco, she put faith in me to be in math competitions and to put me on that STEM road, right? To go after a STEM career in my life because she saw my aptitude and she encouraged me to go further. The impact that we can make on our people and our community, especially in the early age, is so powerful. Please make sure you're doing that for others. Robert Boyd, he was the director of Inroads. He helps to place underserved college students in internship programs. That's how I broke into Bank of America and broke into IBM as an intern during my college days. And those companies have great programs and we gotta be able to take advantage of them. And this is an amazing program, Inroads. Bill Lawrence, a diversity recruiter at IBM, he met me at a job fair while I was in college and encouraged me to fly to White Plains and go to an IBM specific career for diverse candidates. And that's where I got my first full-time job at IBM. And then lastly, David Cancel, my business partner, he's half Puerto Rican, half Ecuadorian. And we worked together for over 12 years, and he has taught me much of what I know about startups. And he's been an incredible role model for me. So never forget what people and companies can do to inspire others. And that's why our mission at Drift is not just to build a chatbot. Our mission is also not just to change the way businesses buy from businesses. We want to change the face of corporate America. We want to show America that people that look like us can create multinational, $10 billion plus global enduring companies. And we want to open up the idea of what's possible for people that look like us. We want to continue making the American dream a reality, not just an aspiration. 30 years ago, I was collecting food in my country. 20 years ago, I built my first chatbot at IBM. 10 years ago, I left IBM to start my first company with David. 5 years ago, we left HubSpot to start Drift out of nothing. And today, Drift has over 370 employees, 114 million in funding from top tier VCs like Sequoia, General Catalyst, and over 50,000 customers. But I only will feel successful when we have inspired others to build something even bigger. Today, get after your American dream. What are you going to do?
All right, Elias, this is so special. I'm so glad that we're getting this time. So for everyone, I'm Max. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Caribou, or Caribou in Espanol. We bring families together through virtual play dates. So if you have a child or a loved one who's 0 to 13 in your life, please check out Caribou and read and draw with them in a video call. But we are here to talk about Elias, my fellow Florida Latinx founder, who, we have a little bit of a rivalry between Tampa and Miami.
Who has the best Cuban sandwich?
No. Okay, you started it. You threw it down. I was going to go to the Cuban sandwich. I was actually going to ask you who, in your opinion, actually invented it, because there's a big fight between Tampa and Miami about who invented the Cuban sandwich. But obviously, it doesn't matter who invented it. Miami has the better Cuban sandwich. So we'll just leave that there. Let's have that be a discussion in the chat, and we can see who wins. How about that? We'll give it to the people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Michelle Paedo's Cuban sandwich in downtown Boston. Make sure you go visit that.
Okay, let's not even talk about Cuban food outside of Florida.
No, in Tampa.
Oh, okay. I thought you said in Boston, and I was like, no. No, I tried to order a café con leche in New York. One time I went to the little truck, and I was like, "Hi, can I get a café con leche?" And the guy's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "What? This is amazing." And he gave me coffee with milk, and I was devastated. So I try not to order Cuban food outside of Florida anymore because it's just disappointing. But let's talk about things that are not disappointing. I am just blown away by what you've been able to accomplish. And again, just your personal story, your immigrant story. I know how hard it is to be, a Latinx founder in this world, and we get less than 2% venture capital, and we also, your name sounds Latino, mine doesn't, so I get to pretend, and I get to walk in and know, and then I have to show my hoops, and I'm like, ha ha ha, I'm Latina. But there is still a ton of bias against us, and you've overcome most of it, or it seems. So this has been right.
I figured it all out. Yeah, I have no stress. My life is easy. I'm at the top of the
right. I mean, it's all solved. You figured it out. Todo bien. But obviously, I think when we grow up in the family that we grow up in, it's the American dream. We think we're going to build $1 billion business, and we're going to employ all these people, and we're going to be la jefa. But did you imagine, when you were growing up, that you'd be here today leading a multi-billion-dollar company?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, I think that it's something I love. I love you mentioned the American dream, right? I think that is the phrase that I'm using to really document my journey, right? Of saying, why are we here, right? And it's I talk about it in the video, right? It's that we can only see as far as the role models that come before us, right? And really, it's something I gave a talk to entrepreneurs in Tampa about this subject, right? Where we have to have the courage to be ambitious. And tell you the truth, my first job in Tampa was cleaning dentist offices, right? And so I was there, and my aunt, the Cuban journey, right? And it's like, my aunt's like, let us stay at her apartment for 30 days and said, I got a good job for you, got connection, right? And
Yeah.
and he pays this much. I don't even know if it was, I don't know, I'm not supposed to say it or not, but the reality, right, is like, if it was under or over the table, right? And it's like, I was 17 and I would just go with my mother and I would clean that place up, right? And so you start with that idea of a business to growing that, and what if I could run this instead, and I have multiple people to create a nice business, to then go to college, to then get a job, to then be CEO of some company, right? But that's completely different than the entrepreneurial journey, right? And to say CEO of a company that's established versus one that you have to start from scratch. And it was funny enough because, Performable, one of the companies I founded with David Cancel, he's Puerto Rican and Ecuadorian parents, right? So we're both two immigrants in Boston starting a company. And when we started that company and we sold it to HubSpot, or $25 million sale, right? It's like,
no big deal.
But it's like, it compares, that's like, that was my ceiling at the time, right? That's what I know how to do. That's what I did. And HubSpot was 35 million in revenue at a time, 5,000 customers. And we took that to 135, took it public, and it was worth like 0.98 of a billion when we went public. And so that is my ceilings. And when you say, like, have I ever envisioned this? Of course not, right? It's like, and we left HubSpot and we said, I remember meeting with Sequoia and say, we have a great idea, and we're gonna build our own $1 billion company. And Sequoia says, no, let me show you this company. We walked down the hallway and there was a HubSpot IPO certificate frame, right? And that was $1 billion outcome. And then they show us the Dropboxes, right? The Palo Alto networks, right? The ServiceNows and this, and it's like, that's 10 billion. That's what an enduring company is. And so there's always great role models and that can let us see far beyond what we can see. And that's where we want, that's kind of what I want to inspire entrepreneurs, right? To not just be like, let's just raise this money and sell a company for 5 million or for 20 million, but it's to dream big, because it's possible. And if I can do it, if Manny Medina do it, if you can do it, then other people will be like, I want to do what they did, because they're just like us, right?
No, I love it. I love that.
Never would have dreamed. I didn't even know what $1 billion was.
Right. Exactly. You can't be what you can't see. I think that was such a perfect example. And I remember in Iceland, they had a female prime minister, and they asked a bunch of young boys in kindergarten, what do you want to be when you grow up? And none of them said prime minister. And they were like, why don't you want to be prime minister? And they're like, oh, only women can be prime minister. Right. Like, I mean, it even really affects you on either side, right? If you can't see it, you sometimes can't even, because you can't create the journey to get there, and that's another thing that we struggle with, right? Is we don't even have the mentors, because there are so few people that have done it before and can help guide us in the unique ways and the different ways that we have to raise capital or take our companies public. There's a lot of, I think, a lot more alternatives now, but it's hard to explore that when you just don't have those networks. So talk to me about your co-founder, David. What was the pain point that you all experienced that led you to create Drift?
I think being Latinx, I think that is the pain point, right? It really became urgent for us that, we saw, we always went back to that sale of Performable to HubSpot and thought, could have we done it? Could have we achieved the same outcome, right? If we had stayed on our independent path. And then when you look at them, right, and say, you know, we know the founders really well, we love them, we respect them, but they're just humans. It's okay. They're not, you know, and they're very humble, and they would admit it too, right? That they're not that different than from David and I. And so when we were work with them and we saw the impact that we made in that company, and they were not looking like us, we would look back and say, somebody needs to look like us, right? And so do we stay here and do really well off, right? I mean, the company is worth now 10 billion, right? 5-6 years later is an incredible, so we're so proud of that outcome and that success of that company that we helped build. But it wasn't done by us. We couldn't quite take the credit and inspire others to do it. Because if we would have gone and told that story and shared it with others, they would have said, well, it was not you that started. Could you have done it? Could you have raised it? Could you have built the product? Could you have sold it? Could you have been ringing the bell on the New York Stock Exchange? And when they asked us those questions, it wasn't going to work. So we immediately got to work and we said, you know what, we got to leave right now. We didn't want to get spoiled by that world of a great company, success, money. And we said, let's get back to work. Let's start from scratch and let's build something from the ground up. And that's the journey that we're in. 5 years in, you know, we are almost 400 employees, doing really well in revenue for a company, hyper growth company, fundraise, best firms in the world. We're like just, you know, one thing at a time, and just dealing with the stress of how do you keep growth rates that are, you know, 70, 100% year over year. And it's really hard. It's a really hard job.
So that's actually something that I think we don't talk about enough on panels for other founders to listen to kind of how we thought through it. But I remember an investor of mine said, do you want the whole grape or do you want a slice of the watermelon? And that's I think the toughest part about taking other people's money. And I love that you and David saw, like, wait a second, we actually could have the whole watermelon, right? Like this time we took a slice of the watermelon, but I think we could, and I don't think people understand sometimes the decision you have to make very early on that. Can you kind of talk through that?
Yeah, I think I love that. And I think that side tangent here, right? There's an article from Robert Smith, right? Vista, right? And he's like establishing this fund to send more Black people to school, pay for their education. And I saw a little bit of back and forth in the Latinx community of like, we need Latinos billionaires to do the same. And then some people were like, where are they, right?
Right, right.
You know, and then the other one was, maybe we don't need billionaires, but we need more millionaires, right? Whichever way, right? This is what we are starving for in our space. And that we do not have access to people, to those mentors to talk about this stuff is what I've been trying to do in the past year, right? Which is like, I am doing this kind of meetings and recordings because I feel like I'm at a point in my career where my future success depends on my execution, not on my knowledge, right? And so what I want to do is share everything that I have and I know for as many of anyone in the world, but especially Latinx, right? To see, and that it could help them to go do the same, right? And so like I say, and anybody wants to be in an interview, ask me whatever you want. I will tell you any discussion, any meeting I had with whoever I had it. If it helps you, that's what I want to do, right? So in this case, you're asking me about the grape. You want to have the whole grape, or you want to have a slice of the watermelon, and it applies in a couple of things. One is, we didn't want just to have the grape, right, or a slice of the watermelon from HubSpot. We wanted to do the whole thing. That's one from a company perspective. But from a company perspective, then it comes the other aspect of it, which is fundraising. And I want to make sure that we don't get stuck in company perspective. Let's not worry too much about ownership, right? Because it's really difficult. It's the same type of question. Do you want to own 1% or 2% of a $10 billion company, or do you want to own 50% of a $2 million company, right?
Right.
It's like, it doesn't matter, right? And it's not, that money, in some ways, it doesn't matter, right? It's like, what matters is the impact, the larger impact, and the mission and the purpose of you in this world and of your company. And for us, that purpose is to be the new face of corporate America by our diversity, right? Is to show the world that two Latinos can actually build a multi-billion-dollar company and be as competitive, as industry changing as any other company that you see in the Valley or anywhere else in the world.
But this is the thing that freaking frustrates me, right? Here you are, two amazingly successful Latinos. The research overwhelmingly shows that if you invest in women, the returns are better. And so why are we still struggling? Why do Latinx and BIPOC and women and Black like founders, why are we still struggling to get people to understand why it's a good bet, right? We have examples like you. We have examples of women, you know, turning every dollar into $5, right? Like we have them. What's going on?
You know the answer.
Not that you, yeah, I want the answer.
Systemic racism, right? We have many walls to break through, right? That are not going to, you know, come down overnight. It's like it's going to take time, but I'm as optimistic as ever with what you see with BLM and what you see in this country. But I think if anything, it's just now showing up to the surface what we're really dealing with, right? And you see that from our presidential debates, right? It's like we are in a really the darkness is being revealed right now. It's like it's pretty clear what we're dealing with. But what I will say as to encourage everyone here is that it's possible. It's possible. I came to this country in 1993, right? And now it's easier than it ever was. You know, the internet is at a level that the internet wasn't when I came, right? It was in its infancy. When I was in college, I was signing up for my first email account, and I was downloading Netscape browser and learning about that.
Do you have a Juno account? I had a Juno account.
Yeah, Juno, yeah. And it's so like AOL, everything, right? Prodigy. And so, God,
that's painful.
Painful days, right? So the times are better, technology is better, more role models, more investors, you know, and so I think that it's absolutely possible. So it's racism, is lack of access to the network, is lack of mentors, it's lack of knowledge, right? And so we're extremely disconnected, and we need to be listening to more conversations like this to know what's possible, right? It's scholarships, for example, for me. And so one is about ownership, one about that. The other one I would say is that when you start in a company, startups, you don't succeed on your first startup. It doesn't just work like that, right? This is a journey, and it's about enjoying the journey, not the destination, right? And so what we're gonna have to do is learn a lot, but eventually you get to the point where you understand the space and you decide whether you wanna go big or go home. So for us, when we raise money, right, our first round was $15 million in funding with no deck, no idea, just the two of us. Right?
That's unheard of, by the way.
So it's absolutely crazy, right? And so what happened was that, and people were saying, why would you raise that much money? How are you gonna grow into that? That gives you no options for selling the company. And we're like, no, we're building a $10 billion company, right? That is exactly what you need. This is my son.
Hi.
It's exactly what you need to build a $10 billion company, right? You're not going to build it, you know, by just raising 1 million, 2 million, right? It's like we were committed from day one to that vision, to that kind of outcome that we're looking for. And so that's how we think about the whole watermelon, right? It's like, and to do that, then it forces a whole chain of reaction of decisions, right? That you have to say, the TAM has to be, the total addressable market has to be huge. The idea has to be differentiated. You have to create a category. You have to become the category king. And those things are easy to say, but they're very hard to do. But we're committed to doing it, right? And so that is how you compare. If you want to build a great, you should start that and get practice, right? And build some of those, get some success, get some of those hits. And then you go for the whole watermelon. Right?
Yeah, I think that was great advice that we got, which was, you just have to make that choice very early on, right? Are you, and you can't at each round decide, you know, to go a different direction. Like it's either you're going to make other people rich. And a lot of times, and this is what the advice was from this investor, it's like make other people rich in your first, you know, kind of in your first company, in your first startup. And then in your second one, you can own more of that company and people will still invest, and you have the leverage. And like you said, right, you walk into a room and you say, we're building a $10 billion business, and people believe you. Yeah. Which is different, right? We're underestimated a lot of times when we come in. And I think that's a big reason why a lot of us founders come in with projections that, you know, we think are realistic. We're like, we're going to make $1 million. And like for us, where we came from, that's exciting. Like our parents never dreamed of making $1 million, right? But
the average income of a business, of a Latinx business in Massachusetts is $100K.
Yeah. The
average revenue. Yeah. And the average revenue of white is 800 or 900,000 a year of SMB. Yeah.
So like when I walk in with projections that I almost kind of don't believe in, when I'm like, oh, we're going to make billions, right? Like we're going to be sold for $1 billion. And it's like, I have to believe it first. But if we don't have those examples, if we haven't done it before, right, then it's harder. So talk to me about COVID. Obviously, it's affecting our community a lot harder than most. What have you seen? What are the positives? What are some of the silver linings, right? What are the things that have come out of it that are encouraging, and what are the things that you're most frustrated by?
I don't know. You caught me off guard with that question. A little bit. I think that I feel in some ways COVID has brought a lot, mostly bad, right? But it has been a lot of good for some of the businesses that are in a better position. For our community, I feel like is mostly bad. I feel this way, and I'm sorry, but it's like when I see my community here, and I am very fortunate in a way that I live in a nice place, a nice neighborhood, that it's, you know, that was kind of like a privilege that I was able to earn, and I'm really grateful for it. And what I've been doing during COVID is really helping the community in Boston where our people are, right? And it's like, so I've been very involved with several organizations, right? Like, you know, the Chelsea Collaborative, we're talking about Zoomix, we're talking about East Boston Small Business Owners, Hyde Park Task Force. I've been doing a lot of focus. I donated my salary for several months to those organizations that are helping with housing, with food, right, with education, with training, because of how they're struggling, because they're not able to keep up with the legal organization that is helping with the PPP loans, right? It's really, they're getting hit really hard, right? They're getting sick more. They don't have access to the healthcare. They're afraid to go to the doctor to get the testing, education to understand the impacts of the disease, right, of the virus. And the savings and educations and the ability for the businesses to transform digitally, right? You know, I did a webinar showing a lot of tips like that for small businesses, but it's hard. It's like they cannot deal with this hit so hard, and we're going to come back. But this is what resets our community back down, and it has to start over, right? And that's what doesn't allow us to keep breaking out of it and go and compete with the rest of the country, right?
Yeah, and we saw that even with the, you know, kind of PPP loan situation, right? Is like, if you haven't had access to capital and you were unbanked, and then they said, hey, here's some money to employ your people, but you have to have a bank, and it was like, wait, what? Like, I'm not laughing, you know, because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's so frustrating, right? That a lot of times these laws are made without, and a lot of times people like us are not in the room. We're not even sitting at the table making these decisions that take into account just the different ways that businesses are being built. And a lot of, especially Latinx, you know, businesses are a lot of times are small businesses, right? And we have just very different structures and needs, and it's very frustrating.
They don't have the social media, they don't have the digital cash, you know, solutions. They're not setting up the sites. They're not going out. They're taking the orders. And so they're slower to adapt, right? Because there's no support, and at those income levels, there's not one going to go in and support that. So we have to rely on nonprofits, right, for that kind of help. And this is gonna be a change. It's gonna take a long time, right, to get more of those businesses to be successful, to invest on the next generations, right?
Right, and a lot of these are family and multi-generational, you know, small businesses. So it's affecting an entire, you know, family, an entire community. is there a silver lining? Has it done any, has COVID, has the global pandemic, has this, in your eyes, done anything good for the community? Has it accelerated anything? Is there anything positive that's come out of it? Because I don't want to end this conversation on.
Yeah, sorry. I think teaching us to be flexible, right? I think what COVID is doing is forcing us to embrace the future, right? This is no longer more about when we get there, but we are here. This is the future now, and we must adapt. And I think we're doing it, right? I mean, if you see, I just drove by East Boston, right? The restaurants are like everybody delivery, takeout, apps, WhatsApp. We are adapting, and but we had to be forced to do it, right? And so it was slow at the beginning, but we're moving in that direction. And I think it's really, that's the silver lining in COVID, right? It's accelerated stuff that we've been delaying for many, many years and did not want to embrace. The problem is we were just not at the right time and place to maximize it, right?
Yeah, a little ramp up period next time when there's a global pandemic would be great. But this has been a pleasure. This was super fun. Anything that you want to leave La Comunidad with? Any last words of wisdom?
Well, I mean, I think it's a big, massive problem, right? How do we help the Latinx community from early education, high school, college, job applications, and then in professional jobs, and then entrepreneurship, right? And so I think what encourages me more every day is that, for example, on LinkedIn, there's just so many more. I'm connected with more Latinx every single day, and they're everywhere. We are such a huge part of this country, and we have so much talent. We have so many great qualities. We have so many great values, right, and experiences that make us, we're so well suited for the entrepreneurial life, right? And so I think that's something what we need is just an encouragement, right, and models to say we can go for it and do things. I would say incrementally in some ways, right? Like, for example, for me, I did not go raise $15 million on my first, try. What I did is I worked with a co-founder that had more experience than I had, that had success 10 years before, right? Or whatever years before. And he was able to raise money, right? And I went and worked with him, right? Alongside him, and learned from how he did it. And I was able to get some of his reputation through osmosis, right? I was working with him, and we worked in a company called Lookery. We worked for that failed. It's always good to get failures. It teaches
Oh, yeah. Not something we grow up feeling comfortable with, but yes, we have to get comfortable with it.
That's another great advice, right? It's like you have to be okay with failures, right? And handle that, and knowing that that's not going to be the end of it, right? We got something else to go try after. So learning how to do that, working with him, and then starting our own company after that, $3 million in Series A for Performable, selling it later for 25, right, before our Series B. And then going into a company that we took public, that is what got us the reputation, right, to do fundraising again. So people ask, like, I think I did a webinar podcast that hasn't been released, but it's about first pitches or something like that. And they asked, like, tell us about your pitch. And I said, you didn't have a pitch, right? It's like there was no pitch.
It's also like your first pitch is always like super embarrassing. You don't want to share that. Sometimes you're like, oh my God, the things I said.
The first pitch for a company, maybe not your first pitch, but and so what happens is that we took that route, right? And that route, it's not the shortest route, right? And that's another thing people need to understand. I'm 44. I've been doing this for 20 plus years, 22, 24 years, 10 years of experience as an engineer at IBM, then 10, 12 years as an entrepreneur. And we made people money, right? And so we did that. We made people money at Performable. We made people money, lots of money at HubSpot. And we're still making people money at HubSpot. Of course, they were going to back us up, right? The decision-making from the firm is much, much easier when they already know the individual. I was looking at a deck from our growth fund, then they asked me to participate as an LP. And it's interesting that they were saying, they had in there a nice sentence. We don't usually invest until, on average, until we have spent 24 months with the founder. Did you know that?
I have so many thoughts on that as a female founder, because after the Me Too and Time's Up, you know, movements, investors spent less time with us.
Yes.
Because they were afraid of, oh my gosh, you know, blah, 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 and what if this, and what if this, da, da, da. And it was like, we got left out of that informal networking, which is incredibly important in building trust in your founder. So that's a whole other TED Talk.
Yeah,
but yeah, no, it's a good point.
Exactly, right. But did you know that they have it down? They're tracking it to that level of how many months.
I did not know that, but now I do.
And so it's incredible, right? So there's information that we don't understand. Like when we go to a firm and we ask them for money and they say no. And so what? We get personally hurt.
Yeah.
Never, you know, it's like, I felt that way. I have people that rejected me, and we're like, that's it. Never talking to them again. And then it's like, I'm gonna make him regret this, right? And we actually have gone back to those people that we might have felt that, or they came back. And you know what I've learned is that VCs forget that stuff really easily, especially if you make progress in another stage of the company. All they care about is, I want to put money in and it's going to make me money, right? And it's,
at the end of the day, the color they care about is green.
The color they care is green, right? And so, and they're making a disservice to the country and to our community by their biases. But if we gotta help them, right? Because what they care about is green. And so you think about that. And so 24 months, they might say no. I have a firm that has said no to me twice, right?
Yep.
But I want to look at them because I respect them so much in the future. And so it takes time for people to get to know you and understand it. And so we shouldn't, rejection, we should get used to it, right? Failure, you should be used to it. That resilience that Latino, you know, the Cuban people have had, right? They have shown over the
If we can keep a 1956 Chevy on the road, let me tell you, we are resilient people, right? Like,
absolutely. And so that's kind of like the journey that we have to embark, and not to give up, right? Not when somebody says it's not a good idea, not somebody look, research, and then we just have to just go do it, right? Take the risk and not look back. So I think that there's a lot of good that we should be expecting out of our community in the future. It's starting today. We've got to continue to move forward and really move forward. Para adelante, no?
Sí.
Cuban sandwich.
Well, as we say in Miami with Pitbull, it's dale. So, no, I think that's the perfect way to end this. Is there's a lot of resilience in our community, which means we will make it out of this. We will. Our businesses will thrive. Our families will thrive. We will make it out, and we're going to make it out together, right? You lending your salary and your time and your resources to helping out the community is, I think, the reason why we always survive.
Yeah. We care for our communities, and we have to take care of each other, because you know what? I don't think anybody else really cares about us. We have to do it for ourselves.
1,000%. 1,000%. Awesome.
Very nice meeting you. You're a legend. You know, it's like,
dude, it's same. I was like, oh my God, I get to be in the same Zoom room with this guy. This is amazing.
We're definitely, Terrence, it works with me. It's like, he's like, oh, I met Max before. She's awesome. Everybody's like, it's like, and the thing about it is that we're such a small world, and yet we don't know each other, right? And so this is what excites me. And so I think I see it the more I get involved in the community, because to tell you the truth, I was really mostly in the white world. I was just,
no, we had to. How else can we compete? You have to play the game.
It was literally like 2 years ago. The Latin community here in Boston invited me to speak at a place. It's called Hub Week in Boston. And I went there to speak, and it's the first time I was speaking. And we were in the speaking room in the back, and some like container turned into like a green room, and everybody is Latino, like hugging. Because when you been like the República Dominicana and this and that, and I was just like, wow. except when I'm with family in Tampa, I've never felt this way at a tech event. And everything just clicked for me. Holy shit. I've forgotten about my community and my people. And I just been trying to be like everybody else in the system and beating them at their game, but not realizing we had our people to help and to help us, right? And so that's been a huge shift. And it's been so rewarding and so inspirational, so directional for me as a person to understand my own purpose and meaning even better.
Yeah, it gives me, it's like the fairy dust, the pixie dust that I need a lot of times when this is why I can't leave my house during COVID, because I will hug the first person I see, because that's just the way I am, and I'm not allowed to hug people right now. So I miss having that warmth a lot of times in the world that we have to play in, right? In Silicon Valley and in a lot of very white, rooms. They don't love my hugs as much as I would like them to. So it's been very, I had to kind of whitewash myself, and I talk about that a lot, right? It's like, that's absolutely the wrong way to go. Because if someone's going to invest in you, it's because they're investing in your whitewash version, then they're not investing in the thing that is going to make your company successful, right? Like, we're going to make our company successful because we are spicy, because we are loud, because we hug. That's the competitive advantage. And I remember my first lead investor came up to me after I was on like being a female founder type panel where I was like ripping everyone apart. And he came up to me after that and said he wanted to invest. And I was like, you and I are going to make magic together, because if you want to invest in someone like me, who's this loud and honest and blah, 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 like, you know what you're in for, and you know that that's the secret sauce, right? So I think it's important for us to show that.
I think that's an extremely important point, and I'm sure we're breaking the limit. They said that we can go for
12. They said we didn't need, they were like, go for it.
I think that's an extremely important point. We need to stop whitewashing ourselves, one. Second, it's like, and I love, like, we're not supposed to talk about those. Those are like, I guess we can call that ourselves. We can call ourselves loud and spicy. I love it. But I'm saying, like, sometimes we're like, protecting ourselves, like, don't call me spicy, don't assume I'm spicy or whatever. But here, familia, right? But the thing about it is that what I think is most important, for example, most of my time I spend at recruiting, right? And recruiting is a human dance, right? It's like, it's even, as close as possible to dating, right? It's about humans coming together and making a life-changing decision to join you. If you want to build a company, you need to be able to recruit. And so one of the things is that as Latinos, right, is that our strengths are our weaknesses, right? So if somebody's going to say, well, actually for everybody, your strength is your weakness, right? It could play on both sides. And so, like, the way that we are, to some people, they might say something that they might say they don't like it. And then we start controlling ourselves, right? Inhibiting ourselves, right, to doing it. But on the other hand, when I'm recruiting, it's my forwardness, right? It's my honesty, it's my transparency, it's my warmth, right? It's my directness to break through, to open up, especially in New England, where people are like so, like, closed up. And it's like, and then I come and I'm like, I was interviewing a C-level executive today, and I said, what are you looking for? And the person says, the people, the team, that they want to work. Like, how many people say that? And then other people would be like, oh, okay, what do you mean? And then I go, this is me. I just want to be with people that we're going to go to work together, right? That we're going to go battle after battle, help each other. You need something. I go, my CMO just had a baby. We have her back. We're going to, you know what I mean? This is like, and when I go and say everything that I do and how I work, that is what creates connections, right? Whoever doesn't want to connect in that way, maybe is not the person you want to be working with.
Yeah, no, there's a ton of other great places to work.
So we really have to embrace who we are and not whitewash ourselves and use our values, our traditions, our everything, the way we live, our culture as our secret weapon, as our advantage. So make sure you use that every day. So keep talking people.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Okay, we've totally gone over in total.
What is your biggest thing that you're solving for today, right now?
the biggest challenge I'm solving for today is truthfully, you know, I have a global captive audience. We're the category queen, as you said, right? We kind of invented this video calling with kids, interactive video calling space. And there are a billion children who, you know, are affected by the pandemic right now across the globe, who need a better video call with their grandma. We call her Glamma, and in Spanish, Fabuela, Abuela Fabulosa. They need educational, engaging content on screens right now, because they don't have that interactivity. They also need to not be socially isolated. I think that's the biggest thing I'm seeing, not only with kids, but with seniors too right now, is they're completely socially isolated. They can't see their friends, they can't see their family. So the biggest thing I'm trying to solve for right now is like, how do I get Caribou into the hands of more kids across the globe? Because it's like, I didn't call us this, but our families call us an essential business, right? It is extremely important. They say, you know, the number one priority is to keep families safe, but the second priority is to keep the family sane. You know, and we really feel like we're part of that second bucket. And so I am just trying to, like, I haven't slept since March 13th because I just, you know, I tripled my team, the company 10X, you know, we're raising a Series A. Like, it's just, it's all the things, but I don't want to miss any opportunity, because in a pandemic where you absolutely are right, like 90% of what is going on in the world is not okay. I feel like there is a small silver lining where, like you said, we've accelerated our adoption of tech to advance our businesses or to keep our families connected in a way that they weren't before. We just actually partnered with Encantos, which is an amazing brand, Latinx, you know, focused brand, bilingual focused, 21st century skills focused. And I remember growing up having my grandmother sing me Los Pollitos, because there were no children's books that we could read together, right? Like, she just had to, you know, sing the song from memory. I now have Los Pollitos on Caribou that Latinx families can enjoy together. And I like that. To me, like, I could die tomorrow. I'm just so happy. So
it is incredible. Yeah. Because, you know, I see a lot in our culture, a lot of it was transmitted just orally, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes when the family gets together, especially Alejandra and my wife, it's like, it's Ecuadorian, and they're telling all the stories in their songs, and her grandmother is getting up in age, right? And there's so many songs that I don't know if everybody knows them, writes them down, and if I'm not spending with every aunt every day, like, how am I gonna pass it on? And how is my daughter gonna pass it on? And my sons, right? It's like, we gotta capture our culture, right, and carry it forward. So no, this, you know, I'm here. Whatever you need, reach out, please.
Same.
I just connected with Steven, right?
Oh, well, Steven's connected to everyone.
I just connected with him. It's like.
That's weird, because literally Steven is connected to everyone. Anytime he posts about someone, or he comments on something, I'm like, of course you guys know each other. Steven is these.
But I hadn't. It's like, that's how disconnected I was from this world, right? And like,
that's on you, because I'm.
No, I'm just saying.
Everyone else is connected to Steven.
Boston is the farthest from any other city in the tech world. It's like, you know what I mean? I am so far from everybody else in many ways.
When I lived in Boston, I had to leave very quickly, because first of all, I was like, people eat dinner at 6 p.m. and they don't hug. And I was like, and it's cold. I was like, I want out of here. I
became a New Englander. I actually go get my own clams and make my own clam chowder out of the water in the ocean, so in the winter. So
that's intense.
That's an important trait. And so what happens is, like, you know, I'm out here disconnected. I'm not connected to the Latin community. And then Terrence says, do you know this guy? And I'm like, I look at his hair, I look at his photo and like all this stuff. And I'm like, this guy is legit. Let me hit connect. And Steven does not reply to me, does not accept my connection, right?
Hashtag awkward.
And so it's like, and I'm like, well, the guy's cool. I mean, it's like, there's nothing else I can do.
It's like asking Obama to be friends on LinkedIn. I mean, you know, you don't necessarily get a response immediately.
It's okay. And so months later, Terrence sends him an email, explains he had met him, he was connected, doesn't respond to Terrence, right? Nothing. And then one day I was with Frida Kapor Klein.
Oh, yeah.
So Frida is unbelievable, right? She's what an ally to us.
And
so
she loves Steven.
I call with her, and she says, "Have you met Steven? Are you connected? He's on our board for Smash." And I'm like, "Yeah, I heard he's a cool guy, but no, doesn't talk to me." And then she texts him, and she goes, "Respond to Elias right now." And then that's how
So I have a very similar story where I was stalking Steven for a while, and then of course we finally get some time on the calendar. Steve, I'm going to tell him that he needs to watch our session because it's just the Steven show. But
just broadcasting this entire thing no matter what for everybody.
Yeah. But the funny thing is that it took me so long to get on the calendar, and obviously, like, how could Caribou and Encantos not work together, right? Like, it just was so obvious to me that I was like, we should get on the calendar pretty quickly, but it took us a while. And we get on and then like it was supposed to be a 30-minute call, and of course it was a 2-hour call because it was familia, and it was we were going through the friend DNA, the friend DA. It was too much. And but one thing that I do want to say about Steven, for everyone who's watching this panel, like, connect with him because he is one of the most amazing promoters of Black and Latin founders. Like, he has a series that he's doing on LinkedIn, all the social he's dedicating during the week, to showing how many of us are in positions of power and our CEOs. And like, I'm connecting with all these people based off that, because I'm like, you're absolutely right. Like, there's so many people I don't know that, like, we only get stronger when we're fighting together, right? So
absolutely. And just a lot for people, if we include this, right, is like, make sure that, and they told us not to say these things, and we had to be like live, but anyways, we break all the rules. But
yeah,
that what's important is to not give up. Back to that persistence, right? We think this person is not going to connect. We got to be persistent, try again. And then when him got on the meeting, it was like, we known each other forever.
Oh, no, it's like,
he's like, I can help you with this, I'm going to do this. And I was like, oh,
and he does.
Guy's legit. I'm like, this guy can help. So, you know what I mean? I was blown away. And then he's like, and give me your number. We got to be texting. And now he's like, bing, 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 bing. We got to just never give up. Always keep going. That connection. If it's not one way, we got to find the other. The same with investors. You're going to try. It could be 40 times, and then the 41st is going to give you some money. So, and
also, like, know your worth, right? Like, I think a lot of times when we ask someone for something, or we try to connect with someone, we're like, oh, they're tan importante that, like, they're not going to want to talk to me. But like, don't underestimate yourself, right? There's so many people out there that are underestimating us. Don't do that to yourself. Don't be don't add to the critics.
Don't do that to yourself. And the opposite of that would also be, don't think people owe us anything and they're going to do something for nothing, right? We actually have to present and give value in return, right?
Yeah.
So both ways, but we are valuable. We have something to, every single person here, especially every single Latinx, has something to offer. So yeah, very, very nice meeting you. We'll be in touch.
Same. I'm so excited. There's a ton of people that have just come into the waiting room, so I think we're getting officially kicked out.
Okay.
All right. Ciao.
Ciao.
Un placer.